Everyone, and good day. I guess is good day more appropriate because it's a global world we live in right now, and we may just be waking up on different time of the clock at this time. My name is Tunbosun Afolayan, and I'm the NAPE Publicity Secretary. I have the honor to introduce to you, and of course to follow up with an interview, my predecessor, the one and only known as Lateef Amodu. And today we'll be chit-chatting around the conference, chit-chatting about his experience as Publicity Secretary. And then we'll zoom in on him, what he does, his role. And as you can see from his background, he's currently at work. So I felt it was a good opportunity for him to also talk about what he does as a geoscientist. So Lateef, welcome and good to see you.
Thank you very much. I tried to escape you, but you don't give up, do you? No. Anyway, it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to talk about NAPE. It's always a pleasure to talk about NAPE and its conferences. I'm a little worried and scared because I know how tenacious you can be with your questions. So please take it easy on me. I'm at work. All right. So over to you.
All right. So I'd like you to just quickly introduce yourself. Tell me all the nice things that members want to hear. Tell us about your affiliations. Tell us about academic background. What made you to do geology? Make it as you would like it to be, as elaborate as you like it to be.
Okay, so I am a geologist, a professional geologist by background. I got my undergraduate from the University of Advocacy and got my master's from Imperial College. I'm actually an Egypt scholar. That's how I was able to get my master's degree at Imperial. Give or take, I'm slightly short of 20 years in the industry. I have experiences in the subsurface and in operations, which, as you can see, I'm doing right now. I'm actually in transition out of this role. I should get back to the subsurface. I guess I'm missing it and it's missing me. In the last 20 years, I've worked with some Nigerian independent companies. I've worked onshore, offshore, deep water, Africa, UK, the US, Europe. I've got some clear experiences across exploration, asset development, operations, which I'm doing right now. And right now I am working for the super major, the global energy giant called Chevron. And I've been doing that for almost 15 years now. So that's very much what it is. I don't like geology anymore. I now love geology. I am a geoscientist in my heart. I'm very passionate about the oil and gas industry. And by extension, I'm very passionate about the energy industry because our role has really changed. I consider myself as high energy and some with broad experiences in the industry. My passion for the industry is clearly driven by the ability for our industry to phenomenally transform and impact lives, people, society, and the world. So I believe after doctors and maybe economics, geologists are probably the most important profession globally.
I agree totally. I mean, we're not even going to debate it. I agree totally. So I'm just going to allow you to land your point, and I'll elaborate more on why I agree with you. So just please go ahead.
Yeah, because every facet of endeavor in this world involves one part of geology or the other, and it's all about where you decide to focus your strength and energy. Right now, it's oil and gas for me, upstream and surface, but we geologists are naturally economists more or less because it's all about finding commercial quantities and producing them in an economic fashion. So Nigeria specifically is predominantly driven by the work of the geologists or geoscientists, whichever way you want to slice that cake.
All right, so let's come back to that. I want you to land your introductions and I want you to hit the notes where you become NAPE PS. Have you volunteered for NAPE? What have you done for NAPE in terms of the societal affiliations?
The NAPE story is very funny for me. Late 90s, went to a couple of technical meetings. This is in Lagos. I think it's the Lagoon Restaurant, TBS, and Muson Center. But my first real participation in the NAPE conference was in Abuja. And I believe that will be the year 2000. It was a Sheraton Hotel, Ladikwali, and honestly, it was a complete eye-opener. It was a game changer in my passion for oil and gas exploration and production. It introduced me to things I've never seen before. It introduced me to things that I'd only seen either online, virtually, and it reignited created that bridge and connection between what I was seeing in my undergrad with what was attainable. So, for instance, I saw the new technologies around seismic acquisition, 4D, 4C, and 3C users. So 4D, 3-component acquisition, 4D, 4-component acquisition. We're just all like, wow, what's going on here? What's happening here? You know, why don't I know this? How do I get involved? How do I get competence to get involved?
And
so
I presume this was straight from undergrads, right? This was straight from Imperial and you were here.
Exactly. So I think I was in my trainer level or thereabouts, or just getting into that, or something like that. All I know is that it opened all those synapses and I was hooked. I was hooked literally since 2000. So this is like a 21-year affair, more or less. I don't think I've missed up to 2 conferences since then. I got the bug. I became the president, in fact, champion opening a NAPE student chapter in my university in Advocacy. Actually went ahead to open the first NAPE AAPG student chapter in the country, and became a Petropro scholar, volunteered for CPC, and met a lot of mentors and coaches along the way, professional mentors and coaches, and even personal mentors and coaches. So the conference and NAPE as a whole has been good to me personally. All of this eventually resulted in me becoming the chairperson or chairman for the exhibition subcommittee.
Okay, so hold your thoughts there. Let me hold your thoughts there. We'll get to it in a few minutes. So let's stay back on NAPE before we talk about the conference. You see, one of the things that I know we both know is that NAPE is much more than a conference. NAPE is a community of connected individuals, connected professionals who are all keen about promoting and advocating for both the development of geoscience in terms of our academia, but more importantly, in terms of how the industry needs to shape us. So I like to always make that distinction around, while we hold one of the biggest oil and gas conference on the continent of Africa, there is so much more to us than just the NAPE conference. And you have touched on it. You've talked about the networking. You've talked about the fact that you were introduced to a lot of early concepts that you took pleasure in knowing, and they have shaped your career. So let's come back to how has this impact of being a NAPE member, being an advocate of NAPE, following the trend, how has it shaped your life and your career?
Okay, so you don't know what you don't know. And one of the best ways of learning is leveraging people's experiences. It accelerates your learning curve. And the NAPE actually creates that continuous platform where you interact with professionals globally, not just nationally. And the oil and gas industry is not a national event, it's not a local event, it's a global industry. The considerations and influences that shape and influences our decision making is global. So invariably from the precepts, the conversation is at the highest level. And we're pushing the best of practices constantly. Having said that, by interacting with different professionals, colleagues, your peers, you're constantly exchanging ideas. So early on in my career, as I left university, you're exchanging ideas around where are those opportunities to get a job. As you get older, you're exchanging other ideas around what are those best concepts technically to assess the subsurface, to better quantify the resource, as you go further. And you start to realize that it's not just the subsurface you need to look out for. You start to think about the business, because petroleum geoscientists, to be exact, our job is not to find oil. Our job is to find commercially viable quantities of oil. If it's not making profit, if it's not making sense from a commercial economic standpoint, then the effort is wasted. And herein comes the notion of my early understanding of the influences and impact of the physical framework, the business environment, and how that literally impacts not just the companies, but the stakeholder, the holistic value chain of the stakeholders. So very early on, I had mentors from past presidents who kept on having those conversations. And I keep on listening, and I start to realize that, okay, this game is the influences and transfer. Yeah, so you start to find out that it's unlocking a thinking style and pattern that is not something you can get in school. It's not something you can get from studying on your own. In fact, you find out that you're now working with experiences that you definitely could not have had if you were on the journey alone. So I tell people we have about 12,000 members, give or take, when you look at the full demography. But most people don't realize that NAPE is literally the biggest oil and gas professional association in Africa, right? We also are actually leading when it comes to oil and gas exploration and the business in Africa. So you're looking at a leader of a continent, a professional leader of a continent that is shaping that industry. Most of the super majors, we account for about 10% of their production or resource base. That speaks volume. So it's again, when it comes to NAPE, I owe it at a very, very high place personally, because the exposure it has provided me, the ability that's allowed me to catalyze and crystallize my thoughts has been phenomenal, simply phenomenal.
Amazing. And I like the way you kind of pitch the fact that when you begin to get into geosciences and attend these technical meetings and business meetings and cap it up with a conference, I think every geoscientist come around full circle to know that it is beyond geology. And thinking about what you've said, I know there is an erstwhile president and a fellow of NAPE that sees E&P, in his words, as energy and policy, economic and political. And I know it cannot be further than the truth. The first time I heard him say it made sense upfront, because you cannot be exploring and leaving it just at exploration level. And that's the kind of conversations that the NAPE events, conferences, meetings, sessions, workshops, so many activities really afford you. So thank you for adding that point. So I hear you say your first NAPE conference was 2000.
Yeah, I know.
You're an old boy. You're an old boy. I should pin you right now. You're an old boy. So thank you so much for your commitment to NAPE. I mean, I've heard stranger numbers at this interview. I've heard 1989. I've heard even further than that. And I'm always thrown away. Like, for people to have joined an association that early, like you did, 2000 to now is 21 years. A 21-year-old person has come full adults. And choosing to stay with that association speaks volume. You get what I mean? You can say at childhood, you were compelled to join, but I am here even as an adult, and I still like the involvement and the activity. So let's talk about NAPE.
Okay.
What does NAPE mean to you as Lateef?
Okay, so when you think about that, right, you have to understand that as a judge, is to say the present is the key to the past, right? That's very, very true. But also being able to look in the past, you start to appreciate the present also. So most people don't know, but NAPE essentially led and championed the conversation around national field exercise, and that resulted in a very, very successful exercise about 20 years ago. In fact, the next marginal field exercise was like last year. We also championed the conversation around deep water exploration. And again, that resulted in a lot of our members and stakeholders, pushing into that deep water frontier. So we've always led that conversation. And right now, I think last year, we were supporting our different stakeholders to push the conversation around how do we operate in this uncharted region where we have a pandemic. At the same time, energy is essentially life. We live in a society where there's no energy, there's no power, you really just can't exist, right? We are having this conversation because everything from our computers to the internet is powered by some form of energy. So I believe NAPE will continue to champion and push the frontier. We'll continue to lead that conversation where we need to go. Right now, the theme of the conference clearly elucidates or highlights where we need to be. What's next? How do we structure to be positioned to essentially continue to deliver one of the most important resources in the world, which is energy? In addition to that, the energy world and landscape is in transition. 15 years ago, oil and gas industry was the mainstay, or at least it will be, one of your Fortune 500 companies where the risk reward appetite or profile was top notch. Right now, we are getting a very, very big run for our money. Now, you want to sandwich that with the fact that as we speak, there's also the global energy transition. Whether there's a pandemic or not, the world wants greener, cleaner energy, and that is appropriate. Where geologists will understand what the carbon footprint means from a very elementary perspective. So then you come to Nigeria, where we've changed the entire physical and regulatory framework. So there's so much transition going on that only professionals like us can help create that platform where the conversations need to be made and where we collectively, maybe iteratively, come up with solutions or possible solutions to solve these very germane problems, of national consequence.
Thank you, Lateef. One of the thoughts in my head is the chicken and egg story can actually be attributed, or maybe the energy and technology story. Sometimes we assume it's a chicken and egg story, but there was never technology, even when there was a need for energy. So I am one of those people who tend to not see them as dependencies. Now that we are here, yes, they are dependencies, but where we started from, there was a need for energy with or without technology. So yes, technology has affected our life, it has accelerated our productivity, and it's going to do much more. And who knows? But the fact that the energy conversation is on the table goes beyond just its availability for technology. It's even life. Energy kind of powers our life right now, and that's the way I like to think about it. So let's talk about this year's
conference. Why I said.
Okay, go ahead.
So, no, and I said that's why I said earlier that left to me doctors and maybe economists. I think the most important profession is a geoscientist. A lot of, the jury might be out there, but from my position, I can tell you for free, the impact and influences of the professionals in the oil and gas space literally chatters and dictates what happens in the world. It's as simple as that. So who would ever believe that you find, yes, you could say it's the impact of the supply chain, which is the direct impact of the pandemic. And that's why there's a shortage in the UK. But that's how important energy is. You have people, for power in the UK. It's that important.
Yeah, and it's coming very early on. So I like it that didn't wait to happen. It didn't wait a long time to happen. It happened so quickly. So we know the importance.
Oh, yes.
Right. So coming back to the conference, this year's conference, and I know that you have a huge experience with conference planning from the publicity and all the communication space. So let's talk about that. So this year's theme is petroleum exploration and production in a new world. What next after the global crisis? Lateef, you were in the crisis. You had to plan a conference in the crisis. So before you talk about what next, I want you to take us on a journey as to what was when you were in the crisis as the publicity secretary of this association.
So first, I have to be pretty candid. There was nothing we achieved that wasn't done by the team. We had a team of individuals who were equally committed, who brought different creative juices to the table. So the biggest challenge was this. First, there was isolation. So let's first get that right. Everything was virtual. Now, right now, we're all used to that virtual environment, but you need to take things back to February, early March 2020. In fact, we're about to go or not go on a technical meeting. That's when the pandemic hit us. So, of course, we didn't go with the technical meeting because safety first. And the question now comes, do we even have a conference in the first place? So that was even the first question. It wasn't even about, do we have a conference? Under the current president, who was then the president-elect, Madam Pat, she was dogged and she led a team of individuals, which I was part of. And we kept on looking for creative solutions, both locally and globally, to first, in small bits, test different portions of how we want to go about the conference. So one of our tests were technical and webinars. First, we had to do webinars to first bring everybody back together. That yes, we might all be in our different silos, working in different branches, but let's have a conversation on the challenges right now. So I think we had Dr. Lateef Amodu, who was our first guest, and it was completely new. We're using new tools, new social media tools. I think we used Instagram Live back then. So there were a lot of thinking about it. when you go back in time, right, and look back, vision is 2020. Where we are now is so much greater. Look at me having a conversation with you. I'm offshore. It seems very, organic. It's normal. But way back then, it wasn't. Production, the backdrop, the lighting, the sound, making sure that everybody was on the same page. There were a lot of moving pieces that we had to solve. Under publicity, I think the very first thing we had to do was even clean up our social media presence. And thanks to people like yourself and other contributors, we were able to do that. And I think right now we have a footprint of about over 5,000 people across our various platforms. So, and now we are leading that conversation in the oil and gas upstream space. And I see all the great things that people are doing. One thing I need to say thank you to, or a group of people, will be the young professionals. They volunteered on a lot of things that we didn't even know how to do. And they led around Twitter, they led around LinkedIn and other spaces, and were able to get to a virtual conference, which by all accounts, eventually was very, very successful. The journey wasn't smooth. I hope I didn't paint a very smooth picture. It was tough, but
it sounded easy. It sounded easy, so fair deal.
Oh yeah, then another thing, we found out the hard way that virtual events are more difficult than physical events. So the CPC, Conference Planning Committee, was, I think, 40% larger than the actual physical CPC because you needed more hands in your production, your post-production, your pre-production, your live coverage. It was learning for me too, things that I had no idea about. So yeah, it was an experience. I don't think the president wants to do it again though.
We'll ask her. I would ask her, and then I'll let you know, of course, what she thinks.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Lateef. Now let's talk about your life. So it means invariably that you will be attending this year's conference, if for nothing, to come and see what this amazing PS is doing, right? That counts.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. I believe I don't. I believe she will hunt me down. But on a serious note, like I mentioned earlier, the conversations on the table are very important. I think the 16th of August, His Excellency, the President of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, signed what we now call the PIA.
Law. Yeah.
This is the end of about a 18 to 21 year journey for the petroleum industry bill that eventually evolved into, I think, 2 or 3 separate legislative or regulatory frameworks. Everybody is learning what this means. It's not hidden. SPDC is out there looking for share essentially in Nigeria. It's trying to divest its JV business. So there's so many conversations that needs, like I said, we're in transition in a lot of things in this industry. And this is the time where stakeholders need to sit down and have that conversation, because only by having these, I'll call them strategic, very focused conversation.
And timely. Yeah.
Only that way can we start to find alignments, because it's all about win-win. And most people don't like to hear this. It is a business.
Right.
If the business is not profitable,
right,
it's a global business. Investors will take their money and go to where it will be profitable for them. It's as simple
as that, right? So, I mean, more of these conversations are what will be happening. We're talking about even the digital economy. We are talking about the Naira in itself. We are talking about the energy transition. We're talking about the global pandemic. So there are a lot of activities and timely conversations that does not shape only the oil and gas industry, like you call it, the global industry. If the world was a business, these are the conversations that we should be happening. So I'd like to round up a bit. And
sorry. So one of the things that NAPE does, and we don't highlight a lot, is often we are just scientists, but like I said, it's a business. So at some point we transcend from being geoscientists to being essentially, we start to get involved with legal folks, legal practitioners, because there's a lot of, right now, the physical framework has changed. So our petroleum economics, our bankers, our funders, our financiers. Now, the fight for money, for capital, for funding, I do not think it has been this intense at any point in the history of the world. We now have significantly more viable businesses contending for money.
And I agree. I mean, the essence of all of this is to highlight that while we are a global industry or a global organization, if you were to assume it that way, there has to be the place for advocacy, which is what we are doing. So you cannot take a geoscientist and you cannot be a geoscientist without being or having full knowledge of policy or framework of how policies are built. And that's what all of the opportunities that NAPE really do avail to its members. So let's round up quickly in view of time. And I want you to just share your experience around, you've talked about your 22 decades experience, you're in the field right now. Can you take us on the 3 minutes journey? What do you do on the field as a geoscientist? What's your day like in 3 minutes, if you'd like?
So, especially in the field, my role is not necessarily subsurface, it's surface operation. So it's focusing on production. It's ensuring that, so our operation is 24/7, right? We don't compromise on safety. We make sure that we meet spec for our other stakeholders. I'm currently overseeing a hub under the Chevron Nigeria joint venture enterprise. And so I'm interfacing with gas processing facilities. I sit on an oil and gas processing facility, and then I'm interfacing with other stakeholders. So it's not really a geocentric type activity. It's more of operations. So things around maintenance and ensuring that the facility is always in good shape is very, very key to us. Then, I kind of like it. It's a different type of business. When we find out oil as a geologist or as a petroleum engineer and produce it, we have to essentially evacuate it. Well, it's facilities like this that are in charge of that evacuation. And facilities like this cannot afford to shut down, except there's maybe a turnaround maintenance of some sort. We avoid shutdowns. We do not like shutdowns. So, I don't want to be speaking a little bit of unnecessary lingo because, again, I'm at work. I'm sure my folks would just look like, when did you become such a nice guy?
So Lateef, I disagree with you. Everything is geocentric, right? The fact that you are sitting on a platform that is producing what a geoscientist has modeled or has conceptualized, it makes it geocentric. You are working, maybe not deliberately as a geologist, we're in this role, but you cannot take away from the knowledge that you have built across the years as a geoscientist. So leave it at geocentric regardless.
As the host, we'll let you win.
You agree with me?
As the,
great.
But my understanding is that the guest is meant to have priority.
You do.
Daily, so daily we are fighting things like corrosion. Daily we are fighting things like flow assurances, ensuring that our pressures for our vessels are intact. I'm making sure we don't have spurious alarms. We're having drills to ensure that safety is at the highest level. There's zero tolerance for anything unsafe. So, so those kind of focuses kind of moves you a little away from the subsurface. But again, the product, the commodity is from the subsurface. So hydrocarbon is from the subsurface.
Right.
Those properties, of course, are things we've always had to deal with in the subsurface and model. So yeah, you're right. 50-50.
Right. So thank you so much, Lateef, for your time. I'll just give you 1 minute to invite members of NAPE and the public to the NAPE conference happening in the hotel November 14th and 18th. So you have the floor. Please do the invitation for us.
Okay. So before I invite, I saw the last interview by one of my mentors, Nusa, who called the conference, it's the Oil and Gas Olympics, For me, I think it's beyond the Oil and Gas Olympics. I believe right now it's an opportunity for us literally to come together and address very germane and important issues. and challenges. I don't think any stakeholder should miss the conference. Fortunately, you can attend physically and virtually. So anywhere you are globally, I believe this is an opportunity for you to listen to those conversations, participate in those conversations, be part of the conversation so that you can be part of the solution, and collectively we can get to a better place. Please don't miss the conference. I'm referring to all stakeholders, so from students, undergrads, to the academia, to the early professional, mid-career professional, to even the guys in they call it the sunset career folks. I believe there's a space for everybody. I would directly invite our legislators, the guys in charge of policy and regulators. They should come and listen to where the pinch points and pain points are for the guys that are actually essentially professionals of the industry, the majors, the independents. Let's all sit down and have that conversation together.
Right. Thank you so much, Lateef. It's a pleasure having you, and we'll talk soon. Okay. Have fun on the floor.
Pleasure. Great job. Great job anyway. And thank you for inviting me. Right.
You're welcome. Thank you, Lateef. Have a good one.
All right.
Bye.